Wales is a nation in poverty, and I've come up with a 3-step plan to turn that poverty into prosperity. It's big, it's ambitious, it's a 20-year plan, but it's bold and it's workable and it's achievable. Welcome to Haydn's Big Ideas. Hi, I'm Haydn Rushworth, and I'd like to tell you today about my 3-step plan for how to turn Wales around, for how to take it from being a nation in poverty to a nation in prosperity. And by the way, I'm not talking about Wales becoming a greedy nation. I'm talking about Wales becoming a prosperous nation so that Wales, with the people of Wales having great big hearts, can help other people, can help other nations, can just do good in the world, can contribute to the world, can be a meaningful contributor on the world stage, and that will come with prosperity. Now let's be clear, this is something that's not going to happen overnight. We're not talking about a quick fix, easy kind of turnaround. It will take effort and it will take everybody to do it, but it is possible. The reason I'm so passionate about this is that I work in the National Assembly for Wales, or Welsh Parliament as it's now called. I've been studying the secrets of national prosperity and peace and happiness, on and off for all my life. I was a weird kid. So in this video, I want to share with you my 3-step plan for how to turn Wales around, to take it from a nation in poverty to become a nation that is prosperous and happy. And this could work for any nation on earth. The principles are the same. Step 1. A target which cannot be seen, cannot be hit. If we're serious about prosperity, you need to know what you're aiming for. The first thing that we would need, and I know this sounds dumb, but this is really, really, really important. There would need to be prosperity dashboards dotted around Wales outside every public building. In the same way that in New York, in Times Square, the Americans have got their national debt tracker, we'd need something similar that would give us an ongoing week by week, month by month, year by year gauge of how the economy is doing. If you're serious about losing weight, you get some bathroom scales. If you want to know how much fuel is in your car, you make sure that you've got a fuel gauge. If you want to make sure that you're not speeding, you put a speedometer in the car. These things are critical, and having and measuring the deficit and broadcasting it very, very publicly will be a very, very important key first step in helping turn the economy around. The second step, and this one is enormous, but it is absolutely critical and central to turning the fortunes of Wales around. Not just the fortunes, this is about happiness too. This is all ultimately about happiness, peace and prosperity. Step 2 is an education revolution, and I don't use that word lightly. Our education system is totally outdated and totally unfit for purpose. The 21st century is a time of change. The idea of a job for life is completely obsolete, and the idea of an education for life is obsolete. The idea that a kid could leave education at 16 or 18 with a head full of the right knowledge is just bonkers. There is no such thing as the right knowledge anymore. A few basics, sure, reading, writing, and arithmetic, absolutely. But beyond that, we don't need kids who have the right knowledge that politicians have decided what it's going to be. We need a generation who is highly skilled in the art and craft of self-education. We also need to look at the examples that have been done around the world of forward-thinking educators for generations now, and they've been ignored. Finland, they are consistently way up high in the international league table of successful educators, and we need to copy what they're doing. We need to learn from them and apply it. The work that's been done by Sir Ken Robinson, who, may he rest in peace. Sadly, he passed away during the pandemic, not from the pandemic, but from other things, but he is a great loss to the educational community. Sir Ken Robinson has the He has the distinction of having the most watched TED Talk of all time. He is one of the world's great forward thinkers on education revolution. And his work doesn't come close to being incorporated enough in our education system. The final element in this education revolution would be to create an education system that is focused around a child's individual quest to solve somebody else's problem. not a curriculum. Curriculums are ridiculous. They're outdated. It's just a command and control thing that politicians love to use because they can't bear to let go of control. It just doesn't work anymore. The education revolution, there's a lot to it, and there'll be a number of videos, and this is a big area that I've been studying a lot. So just humour me, you'll have more questions than answers. The answers will come, and they're good. The third step in the plan to turn Wales around and turn it into a nation of prosperity is a political revolution. And there are three big things that we really need to change in our political landscape here. First is we need a batch of politicians who understand that they are servants and not masters. We don't need politicians who think that it's their right to rule and reign over us. We need politicians who understand that it is their responsibility to serve us and follow the wishes of the people. The second element of this political revolution is to slowly, gently and carefully introduce more direct democracy, essentially more public votes. They do this in Switzerland all the time. The Americans do it. Don't be afraid. This is important. Because this is where you start to put more of the power back in the hands of the people. And this is really, really important because alongside the education revolution, where we educate the next generation very differently so that they're capable of making better and better decisions, we also need to empower the people more to be able to make those decisions. So some recent examples here in the Welsh Parliament. They introduced a smacking ban that nobody asked for and nobody wanted. But it was buried in the small print of that particular party's manifesto, so they got away with doing it. If we had been in a system of direct democracy, that would have been a public vote. Shall we introduce a smacking ban? Yes or no? And if the public said yes, it would be introduced. If the public said no, it wouldn't be. Votes for prisoners have recently been extended by the Welsh government. It was hugely unpopular by the public. In a direct democracy, that would have been a public vote all by itself, and the people would have said, do you want to extend votes for prisoners, yes or no? Whatever the outcome was, the politicians would have delivered, irrespective of whether they think it's right or wrong, because the politicians would know, sorry, it's not our job to make the decision, our job is just to implement the decision that the people have made. And the final piece in the puzzle in this political revolution, in this three-step plan to turn Wales into a prosperous nation, is something that sounds really boring, but it's really important. It's something called proactive deregulation. Now, politicians love to make regulations and laws. They do it all the time. But they very rarely stop and look and ask, were those regulations actually useful? 5 years down the line, did it achieve its objective? Did it solve the problem? Or did it actually solve one problem and create two brand new ones? Often, regulations have what politicians love to call unintended consequences, which is where you discover, oh, actually it didn't work and it's created some new problems. That happens all the time, but nobody has the guts to stop and say, well, we need to scrap that regulation. It's not fit for purpose, it's not solving the problem, it's just taking up space and making life complicated for people. Whatever industry you are in, I wouldn't be at all surprised if you already know about several regulations which frankly are unfit for purpose. They're just in the way. They're nonsense. They're just there to keep people busy. Proactive deregulation is where you remove the obstacles from progress and success. There is a role for some limited regulation and rules, absolutely, but they should be a last resort. They should not be the first thing that you do to try and solve a problem. But it's all that politicians know how to do, to make up laws and rules. Politicians don't have all the powers that we'd like to believe that they have. They can't solve all of our problems. They can just do a few useful things. Politicians are like builders. Sometimes you need them, but you should never just let them loose with your credit card and tell them you're off to Spain for 6 months and you'll come back when the job's finished. No. You should just keep a very close eye on them, keep them on a short, tight leash, and never, ever just hand over your credit card with your PIN number. Thanks for listening. That's my big... my big ambitious 3-step plan to turn Wales around. There are all kinds of other things that are spin-offs from that, but in broad terms, re-educating the people, getting the obstacles, the regulatory obstacles out of their way that stop them from progressing and prospering, And having a big dashboard where you can see progress, like a set of bathroom scales or like any other measure when you're trying to improve your performance. Those three things, do those over a sustained period. My goodness, Wales would become a prosperous nation. If you want to see what the more of the details of these plans, then tune into the next video and the next and the next and the next. Subscribe, follow me on social media, all that kind of stuff, and join the revolution. Thanks for watching.